The second I saw her floral visor bobbing down the sidewalk like a shark fin in a kiddie pool, I knew I was in for a headache. "Mr. Wallace," she barked, marching toward my driveway like she owned the concrete. "We need to talk, immediately." "My name is Hayden Wallace. I'm a welder. I work odd hours, I keep to myself, and I pay my dues on time, which is more than I can say for half the people in this HOA. And Brenda Pickford, the HOA president, or as the neighborhoods come to call her, Karen Supreme, has made it her personal mission to treat our quiet cul-de-sac like her private kingdom." "Nope," I said before she could start her usual rant. "Not today, Brenda." She planted her tennis shoes right at the edge of my driveway like she was daring me to challenge her. "Per HOA Code 5.3b, I am permitted to inspect any property for violations." "That's not a real thing," I said flatly, arms crossed. "You made that up. It's in the supplemental guidelines I emailed last month. You mean the ones nobody voted on?" "Yeah, I deleted that spam," her nostrils flared. "I'm inspecting that shed in your backyard. I've had 3 anonymous complaints, let me guess. From Brenda Pickford, and Brenda Pickford." "Excuse me," she snapped. "You don't have the authority to block an HOA inspection." "Brenda," I said, stepping between her and the path to my gate, "you're not setting foot on my property. You show up with an official city inspector and a real warrant, we'll talk. Until then, you're trespassing." She actually gasped, like Hand to Her Pearls gasped. "You're obstructing official HOA business. I'm calling the police," she shrieked, yanking out her phone like she was drawing a weapon. "You're going to regret this." I leaned against the fence post and watched her dial with trembling fury. "Go ahead," I said. "You might want to give them my address so they don't show up at yours by mistake." She turned her back to me and paced in circles while the call connected. "Yes, hello. I'm Brenda Pickford, HOA president of Ridgeview Estates. I'm being physically threatened by a man refusing to comply with community bylaws inside the house." I heard the faint ring of the landline on the wall. Brenda kept going, her voice rising. "He's blocking me from entering the premises, and I fear for my safety." I grinned and walked inside, picking up the receiver just as the call connected in the dispatcher's office. "Ridgeview Dispatch, this is Gloria Barton speaking." "Oh, hey babe," I said casually. "You're not going to believe who's trying to send a squad car to our house." There was a pause, and then my wife laughed, loudly. "You've got Brenda on the line, don't you?" Gloria said. "She's outside screeching about bylaws and imaginary inspections." "Well, tell her to hang tight. I'll send someone real intimidating." "You mean like you?" "Oh, I'm tempted," Gloria chuckled. "But I'll log the call and mark it for review. This'll be her 3rd false report this month." Outside, Brenda was still monologuing into the void. I stepped back onto the porch and waved. "You done?" I called. She froze, then narrowed her eyes. "You'll regret this, Mr. Wallace." "I know people." I pointed to my wedding ring. "So do I." One of them happens to answer 911. The look on her face was pure panic. She turned and stormed off down the sidewalk, muttering something about lawsuits and emergency powers. As soon as she was gone, I locked the gate behind me and walked back inside. Gloria was still on the phone, laughing. "She really said she feared for her life?" she asked. "Yup, all right." "That's going in the report. That woman's digging her own grave." The next morning, I had just finished welding a custom gate latch in the garage when my neighbor, Vince, wandered over with a mug of coffee and his usual half-suspicious, half-amused expression. "You really told Brenda off yesterday?" he asked, not bothering with a hello. "She threatened to report me for blocking an inspection," I replied. "Didn't realize shutting your own gate was a federal offense now." He chuckled and took a slow sip. "Well, she came knocking on my door right after. Said you were harboring illegal structures." "Illegal structures?" I wiped my hands on a rag. "She think I'm running a missile silo in my backyard. Honestly, the way she talks, she probably believes it. Told me she was compiling a dossier, whatever that means." I raised an eyebrow. "Like a spy movie dossier?" She had a clipboard. "With tabs, color-coded." Of course she did. Vince looked toward the far end of the block where Brenda's house sat like a pink and beige fortress, complete with a flagpole and a plastic eagle bolted to the gable. She's been patrolling every morning since that new bylaws pamphlet came out. Tried to find me last week because my mailbox was faded, said it brought down property values. Yours is the same one it's been for 10 years. Exactly. I leaned against the hood of my truck, thinking. She's pushing harder than usual. That's not just micromanaging anymore. Vince nodded. You know Tom, retired firefighter, she's been threatening him over his RV, says it's parked too close to the curb. Thing hasn't moved in months, it's not hurting anyone. Are people starting to push back? Some are, most are just keeping their heads down. I glanced toward Brenda's place. Her SUV was gone, but her sprinkler system was hissing away across the lawn set to full blast, even though we were on water restrictions from the city. Has anyone actually read the new guidelines she sent out? Nope. They weren't even voted on. Just showed up in everyone's inbox with that weird red stamp in the corner said Provisional Authority. My stomach turned. That's not a thing. Exactly. I went inside and opened my laptop. Gloria was still at work, but I'd been meaning to dig through the HOA's bylaws for weeks now. The more I read, the weirder things got. Brenda had added a dozen new rules under something called Emergency Community Preservation Measures, none of which were in the original charter. They weren't signed, voted on, or acknowledged by the city. She'd even created her own seal, a badly scanned image of a gavel surrounded by clip-art laurels. She was printing her own authority. I scrolled down to the bottom of the document and found something that made me pause. A new line item requiring all homeowners to submit backyard structures for aesthetic harmonization. It demanded photos, blueprints, and even height measurements. And it required a review fee of $75. That's when I knew this wasn't just another power trip. Brenda was running a scam. I forwarded the document to Gloria at the dispatch office, knowing she'd pass it along to her friend Janet, who worked records at City Code Enforcement. While I waited, I walked out back and checked the shed still locked, still the same one I'd had for years. There was nothing new about it. But Brenda had latched onto it like it was evidence in a criminal investigation. That evening, Gloria came home with a Thai takeout bag and a look that said she hadn't been able to stop thinking about it all day. You were right, she said, setting the food on the counter. Janet pulled the original HOA charter from the city records. None of those new rules exist. Brenda never filed them. And get this, she's been collecting fees through a private P.O. box under the name Ridgeview Community Oversight Panel. Not even the HOA name. Nope, and the address isn't even in Ridgeview, it's in the next town over. That explained the review fees. She was laundering them under a fake committee. I'm guessing that's illegal. Very, Gloria said. Janet's already flagged it and handed it off to the city attorney's office. They'll probably bring in a fraud investigator. I looked out the front window, where Brenda's porch light flickered on automatically. She's been doing this for months, hasn't she? Longer. Janet thinks at least a year. Some of the complaints from the early days got buried under paper misfiling. Brenda's been careful not to file anything officially, just enough to intimidate people. The next morning, a city vehicle rolled onto our block. A plain gray sedan with a magnetic seal on the side reading Municipal Code Enforcement. A woman in a navy blazer stepped out, clipboard in hand, and walked straight to Brenda's door. Vince and I were already outside, pretending to check our mail. Brenda answered with her usual fake smile until she saw the badge clipped to the woman's hip. The conversation was quiet at first. Then the pitch changed. Brenda's voice rose, her hands started flailing. She pointed toward my house, then toward the neighbor's RV, then back to herself like she was the victim of a vast conspiracy. The city official didn't flinch. She just kept pointing at the clipboard and occasionally tapping the badge. Then, a second unmarked car pulled up. A man in a button-down shirt got out, holding a camera and a folder. He joined them on the porch. Brenda's face turned a strange shade of pink. She tried to slam the door. The city official wedged her foot in before it shut. A few minutes later, both of them walked in uninvited by court order, apparently. The man with the camera started snapping pictures of a filing cabinet in the entryway while Brenda trailed behind them, sputtering about overreach and property rights. I couldn't hear everything, but one phrase floated across the yard loud and clear: fraudulent financial collections scheme under false pretenses. That was all I needed to hear. By evening, word had spread like a brush fire. Tom parked his RV in plain sight and set up a lawn chair next to it. Vince painted his mailbox neon blue just to be petty. The widow across the street, who Brenda once fined for having a faded welcome mat, put up a banner that read HOAs need oversight too. And then came the knock on my door. I opened it to find Brenda, makeup streaked, hair frizzed, holding a manila envelope. She didn't step onto the porch, just stood on the walkway, blinking like she hadn't slept. "You started this," she said, voice low and bitter. "You and your wife." "No," I said. "You did that the moment you decided Ridgeview was your personal empire." She held out the envelope. "I'm resigning." They told me I could avoid charges if I returned the funds and stepped down immediately. I didn't take the envelope. "Give it to the city," I said. "I'm not your middleman." She flinched like I'd slapped her. Then she turned and walked away, envelope clutched tight. Gloria joined me on the porch a few seconds later. She'd heard the whole thing. "Think she'll actually return the money?" she asked. "She won't have a choice once the audit's done. City's already drafting a motion to dissolve the current board." "They're bringing in a state mediator next week," I nodded. "Good, maybe we can finally get some normal folks running things," Gloria smiled. "You thinking of running me?" "Nah, I'll help fix the bylaws, but I'm not wearing a floral visor." She laughed. "We'll see." The next morning, the clipboards were gone. The patrols stopped. The neighborhood finally felt like ours again. By the end of the week, Ridgeview felt like a town waking up from a long, uncomfortable dream. Brenda's resignation had triggered a mandatory review of the HOA's operations, and the city wasn't wasting time. The Municipal Fraud Division sent a temporary oversight committee to monitor the transition, and a neutral legal mediator was slated to facilitate the upcoming community vote. I figured that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. 3 days after Brenda's front door was dark and quiet, I found a letter shoved under mine. No envelope, just a single sheet of paper typed in bold block font, no signature. "You think this is over? You've made enemies." I stared at it for a long minute before folding it in half and sticking it beneath the toaster. Gloria would want to see it, and I wasn't about to jump to conclusions. Maybe just some leftover Brenda loyalist trying to stir the pot. But I couldn't ignore how the backyard motion light had flickered on at 2 in the morning the night before. Or how my garbage bin had been tipped over twice in the last week, even though it sat in a gated corner no wind could reach. That same afternoon, Vince flagged me down while I was running a new power conduit to my workshop. "You got anything weird in your mail?" he asked, glancing around like he expected someone to be crouched behind my bushes. "Yeah," I said, nodding toward the house. "Anonymous threat." "No return address, you too." He pulled a folded sheet from his jacket, same font, slightly different message. His said, "You helped destroy something good, there are consequences." Tom got one too. So did the widow with the welcome mat. By the weekend, 7 households had reported identical letters. Some were slid under doors, some inside mailboxes. One was taped to a garage window with painter's tape. I handed them all to Gloria, who took them to the precinct. An officer in property crimes logged them into evidence, and the city liaison added the incidents to the HOA fraud file. But without fingerprints or a clear suspect, there wasn't much they could do. Then, on Sunday, something happened that made it clear this wasn't just about letters. I was in the garage, torching a rusted bolt off an old gate hinge when Gloria burst in, phone in hand. "Hayden, someone just called in a code 72 at Tom's." "Hostile trespass," she nodded, already dialing. I dropped the torch and grabbed my jacket. By the time I rounded the corner, Tom's RV was half covered in black spray paint. Someone had scrawled "Violator" across the side in dripping letters. The lawn chair he always sat in was snapped in half, and the front porch light had been shattered. Tom stood beside it all, arms rigid at his sides. His wife was on the phone, her voice trembling. "Who did this?" I asked. He didn't answer. Just pointed to the chunk of concrete someone had thrown through the RV's windshield. There was a note rubber banded around it. "Community standards will be enforced." One way or another. 2 patrol cars arrived within minutes. The responding officer, Martinez, was one of Gloria's co-workers and had been briefed on the HOA mess already. He took statements, logged evidence, and called in a forensics team. "This isn't just retaliation," he said. "It's coordinated." Same language, same threats. Someone's trying to keep Brenda's grip alive from the shadows. I checked security footage from my own camera system. I'd installed new motion-triggered floodlights and infrared lenses after Brenda's stunt with the fake inspection. At 1:43 in the morning, a dark sedan had rolled slowly past Tom's house. It circled the block twice, then parked for 7 minutes with its lights off. 2 figures emerged. One carried a duffel bag. The other had a hoodie pulled tight. They walked out of frame toward Tom's RV. The license plate was obscured with a plastic cover. But there was one detail they hadn't hidden. The car had a Ridgeview Estates parking sticker. One of the old ones. Issued before the HOA switched to digital tags, that narrowed it to fewer than 20 homes. By Monday, the city attorney had added criminal intimidation and property destruction to the ongoing investigation. The fraud inquiry into Brenda's actions had already uncovered some ugly things, like the fact that she'd used HOA funds to pay for a community leadership seminar in Palm Springs that didn't exist. The receipt turned out to be for a 5-star spa resort under her maiden name. But the vandalism escalated things. Now the police were involved, and the city had issued a restraining order preventing Brenda from entering Ridgeview for the next 90 days while the case developed. That didn't stop the damage from spreading. 2 nights later, the widow's car tires were slashed. Someone filled Vince's mailbox with motor oil. A neighbor across the street found their sprinkler heads ripped out and jammed into their exhaust pipe, and every time, the message was the same. "You brought this on yourselves." That's when Gloria got a call from Janet, the records clerk at the city. "You're not going to believe this," she said as soon as Gloria answered. "Brenda's been sending emails." "She's banned from Ridgeview," Gloria said. "She's not even supposed to contact residents. She's not using her name, she's using fake Gmail accounts, but we traced the IP, it's her. She's been coordinating a rogue enforcement group, calls it the Compliance Circle." I raised an eyebrow. "That sounds like a cult." "It's worse," Janet said. "She's got at least 4 people still in the neighborhood doing her dirty work. We think she promised them roles in the new board once she gets reinstated." "She's delusional," Gloria muttered, "delusional and dangerous." The city's filing charges this week. Wire fraud, harassment, conspiracy to defraud homeowners. The list's growing. "But why now?" I asked. "Why keep pushing after she was caught?" Janet's voice was grim. "Because she was embezzling more than we thought, over $20,000. If she doesn't get the HOA back under her control, she's facing prison time, and she knows it." That night, I gathered the neighbors who'd been targeted. We met in Vince's garage where the smell of pine cleaner did little to mask the tension. "We can't wait for the city to fix this," I said. "We need to protect our homes and each other." "We can't go vigilante," Tom said. "That'll just play into her story." "No," I agreed, "but we can organize cameras, lighting, rotation patrols. Everyone documents everything. If someone steps on your grass wrong, you record it." Vince nodded. "I've got a drone, I'll fly it at night. Thermal camera." The widow raised her hand. "I've got 3 nephews in cybersecurity. They can help trace any suspicious emails." A plan took shape. Within 2 days, the entire block had network surveillance, shared cloud folders, a private group chat for reporting suspicious behavior. Gloria worked with the precinct to assign a liaison for rapid response. Brenda didn't know it yet, but her empire had become a fishbowl. The next time the sedan showed up, Vince's drone caught it from above. The thermal footage showed both occupants. One of them was a woman with short hair and a distinctive limp, the same limp Brenda's former vice president, Cheryl, had after knee surgery last winter. That was enough. Police picked Cheryl up the next morning. She cracked within an hour. She confessed to everything, the letters, the spray paint, the threats, all coordinated through encrypted chats with Brenda. She even admitted to helping alter financial records to hide the missing funds. By the end of the week, Brenda was in custody. Arrested at a gas station trying to flee the county, the news broke that night. Local media aired the footage of her being led away in cuffs. Her face was blank, hollow, like someone who'd finally run out of moves. Ridgeview changed after that. The city dissolved the old HOA and replaced it with a temporary trustee board until new elections could be held. Gloria helped draft the new bylaws, simple, fair, and enforceable. No more hidden fees, no more surprise inspections, and definitely no more emergency powers. At the next community meeting, someone nominated me for board chair. I declined. "I'm a welder," I said, "not a politician." But I offered to build the new community sign. One made of solid steel bolted into the ground with a message etched into the base: "Power serves the people, not the other way around." The week following Brenda's arrest, Ridgeview had a strange quiet to it. Not the good kind, the kind that felt like a held breath, the kind before a storm. With Cheryl's confession, the city had locked down the HOA's financial records, and a forensic audit team was now combing through every transaction from the past 5 years. While most of us were ready to move on, it turned out Brenda had left behind more than bad bylaws and broken porch lights. One evening, Gloria came home with a manila folder tucked under her arm. She looked tired, but not in the usual shift was long kind of way. It was the kind of tired you get when you're staring down something too big to ignore. "You're going to want to see this," she said, placing the folder on the kitchen table. I opened it. Inside were high-resolution scans of receipts, bank statements, and a typed ledger, one that wasn't in the HOA's official records. "She had a second account," Gloria said, sitting across from me. "A shadow ledger, separate from the regular HOA funds." I narrowed my eyes. "Where'd this come from?" Cheryl gave it up during her second interview, said Brenda made her keep it off book. "It was where she funneled the money from the fake inspection fees and the harmonization permits." I flipped through the pages. There were dozens of transactions, private landscaping services in neighborhoods Brenda didn't live in, luxury home decor orders sent to an address 6 counties south, even a recurring transfer labeled legal discretion fund. "She was paying someone off?" I asked. "Looks like it." Janet ran the routing numbers. Funds were being sent to a law office in Belmont, but it's not a real firm, it's a shell company. I leaned back, trying to make sense of it. So this wasn't just a power trip, she was hiding money in another town under a fake business name. Exactly. And here's the kicker, one of those addresses. It's a duplex registered under her cousin's name. She was laundering HOA money through fake legal retainers and using it to renovate a rental property. I didn't say anything. I was trying not to let rage cloud the facts. Gloria pulled out a final sheet. "This is what's going to bury her." This one shows a withdrawal of nearly $8,000, labeled Community Emergency Response Fund. Did that fund ever exist on paper? No. And the withdrawal date is the same day she called that false report on you. The one where she claimed you threatened her. She tried to cover her tracks by creating a fake reason for needing emergency funds, I said slowly, and then tried to provoke me into reacting. Gloria nodded. She wanted a lawsuit. Or at least a confrontation loud enough to justify draining the account without raising suspicion. She didn't count on the call coming directly to me. I stood up and paced to the window. Brenda had always been petty, controlling, but this was something else. She'd crossed from HOA tyrant into full-blown criminal territory. "What happens now?" I asked. "The DA's office is prepping additional charges: wire fraud, money laundering, falsifying financial records, and obstruction. They're pushing for a grand jury indictment. And Cheryl, she'll probably get a plea deal. Cooperation, first-time offender, that kind of thing, but she won't be setting foot at another HOA meeting again." I shook my head. "This whole thing started because I didn't want her snooping in my shed." Gloria gave a dry laugh and stood. "Sometimes the smallest hinge swings the heaviest door." The following weekend, the city held a town hall meeting at the Ridgeview Community Center. Not a HOA meeting, this one was hosted by a municipal oversight committee, and the entire block was invited. Rows of folding chairs filled the room, and every single one was occupied. Even the folks who usually kept to themselves showed up. The damage had touched too many people to stay silent now. A woman from the city governance office named Miriam took the podium. She had a no-nonsense tone and a binder thick enough to choke a horse. "We have concluded the preliminary investigation into the Ridgeview Estates Homeowners Association," she began. "The findings are clear: gross negligence, intentional misappropriation of funds, and targeted harassment of residents by members of the previous board, primarily former President Brenda Pickford." There were no gasps, just silence. "The kind of silence that comes when people finally hear the truth out loud," Miriam continued. "Effective immediately, the city is dissolving the Ridgeview HOA as it currently exists. A temporary fiduciary board will be installed to manage remaining obligations, and a permanent structure will be created with full community input. No more hidden bylaws, no more unchecked authority." Applause broke out, polite at first, but then louder. I caught Tom clapping with both hands above his head. Vince leaned back in his chair and exhaled like he'd been holding it since last year. Later, during the open forum, I stood and walked to the microphone. "I'm not here to run for anything," I said. "I'm just a welder. But I want to propose something. When the new board is elected, we don't just change the faces, we change the rules of the game. Any change in bylaws shouldn't just require a vote. It should require full transparency, public postings, a community review window. And no more fines without proof of violation and a chance to appeal." A few people nodded. One woman near the back raised her hand. "And no more surprise inspections." "That too," I said. "And one more thing, mandatory term limits for board members. No more little kingdoms." That got the biggest applause of the night. After the meeting, as people filed out, I noticed a few of the older residents talking for the first time. Neighbors who'd been too afraid to speak up before were now shaking hands, exchanging phone numbers. The fear Brenda had sown was unraveling. 3 weeks later, the grand jury handed down its indictment. Brenda was hit with 9 felony counts. She pled not guilty, of course, but the evidence was overwhelming. Between the fake invoices, the shell company, and Cheryl's testimony, the case was airtight. Her trial was scheduled for the fall, and the judge denied bail, citing risk of flight and witness tampering. The duplex in Belmont was seized under asset forfeiture. The city earmarked the recovered funds for Ridgeview's infrastructure, repaving sidewalks, replacing aging street lamps, and installing new security cameras at entrances. Gloria and I sat on the porch one quiet evening, watching the sunset settle over the neighborhood. The old Ridgeview sign had been taken down, and a new one was going up the next week. One made of steel and powder coated red, white, and gray. I'd finished welding it that afternoon. "Feels different now," Gloria said, sipping her iced tea. "It is different," I said. "It's ours again." She leaned against my shoulder. "You know, you never did get fined for that shed," I chuckled. "Guess I should have charged Brenda rent for all the time she spent obsessing over it." She laughed quietly, then looked out across the street. "Think the new board will stick to the reforms?" "They will," I said, "because now they know people are watching, and not just watching organized." The first election for the new board happened 2 months later. The candidates were regular folks, a schoolteacher, a retired contractor, a nurse. No one campaigned with flyers or slogans, just short speeches and open Q&A sessions. The community voted in person at the rec center. No one ran unopposed. No decisions were made behind closed doors. And when the new bylaws were posted, they were printed on bright yellow paper, delivered to every house, and included a QR code that linked to a public forum for feedback. For the first time, Ridgeview felt like a neighborhood again, not a fiefdom. As for me, I went back to my projects. Welded a new bench for the park, helped Tom install a new awning for his RV. The widow across the street gave me a basket of homemade cookies with a note that said, "Thank you for protecting the block." I didn't do it alone. None of us did, but it started with a gate. A gate I refused to open for a woman who thought power gave her permission. It ended with her behind bars and a neighborhood standing stronger than ever. And now, every time I hear a phone ring, I can't help but smile, because sometimes justice doesn't knock, sometimes it answers.